Have you ever had your own child decide your life for you? Walk into your house, call it theirs, and make plans without even asking? What would you do if the place you built with your own hands suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else? I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I just chose a way that made everyone finally listen. Before we jump in, I want to know, where in the world are you right now? And what time are you listening? Let us know down in the comments. I still remember that evening. The house was brighter than usual, like someone was celebrating something I hadn't been told about. I had cooked a simple roast and opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving. My son Eric arrived with his wife, Melissa, and their 2 kids. Linda, my neighbor, came too. She said she was invited just for fun. The table was full, plates, clinking voices, overlapping. For a moment, I thought it was going to be one of those rare nights that reminded me of when my wife was still alive. Then Eric cleared his throat. "We've been talking," he said, glancing at Melissa before turning to me. "We're thinking of moving in here with you. The house is too big for one person, Dad." "It makes sense." His words landed hard on the table. No one met my eyes. Melissa nodded like it was already settled. One of the kids asked for the upstairs room and everyone laughed. I didn't. Kept still, hands flat on the plate fork, scraping faintly against porcelain. Maybe Linda asked George, "What do you think?" But Eric cut in brisk and certain. "It'll be easier for everyone. We'll help with the bills, keep things running. Maybe clear out some of Mom's old stuff, make the place lighter." A nod came out of habit. Not agreement. Silence was simpler. Dinner drifted on. Melissa talked about new furniture. Linda tried to soften things, but the decision was done. I cleared the plates while Eric mapped out where he'd put the kids' desks. The sink filled with warm, cloudy water. I washed each dish slowly, letting the rhythm blur their voices. A small part of me waited for someone to notice how wrong it all felt. No one did. Towel hung back on the hook. "Dad, you okay?" Eric called. "Fine. Just need some air." Stood there a while, listening to the faint clatter of dishes, the hum of conversation turning softer, the sound of my own heartbeat evening out. The laughter faded, replaced by quiet. I got up early, brewed coffee, still half tasting last night's unease. Tires crunched on the gravel Eric's car. Before I reached the cup, he was already at the door, cheerful, confident. "Morning, Dad. I've got a few renovation ideas." He spread his papers, measurements, sketches, color samples, talking fast, as if the deal was already done. I watched quietly, the smell of coffee rising between us, realizing he hadn't come to ask, but to declare. "I've got a contractor ready next month," he said. "We'll redo the kitchen, repaint the living room, open the porch, make it more livable for everyone." For everyone. Not for me. The house had become a project. I nodded once, then again, just to keep the moment moving. His pen tapped words spilling out, upgrading, repurpose, space efficiency. None belonged to the way I'd built this place. When he paused, I murmured, "You've been busy?" He looked relieved. "Someone has to keep things running." I poured him coffee. "Black or sugar?" "Black's fine," he said, already glancing at his watch. "Melissa wants to bring the kids this weekend. Let them pick their rooms." It sounded final, like a plan already printed. I wanted to speak, but the words stayed buried. Silence had long become habit. After he left, the table remained cluttered with his plans, corners curling in the sunlight. The coffee cooled. Linda waved from the gate, a paper bag in hand. "You up, yeah? Coffee's on." She set 2 muffins on the table. "Heard a bit of last night," she said. "You okay?" I shrugged. "He means well." "George," she said softly. "People stay quiet about what they think they own. If you don't speak up, they'll assume you've agreed." No answer came. My eyes stayed on the sketches, the kitchen, the porch walls still carrying traces of my wife's perfume when damp weather rolled in. Linda brushed her gloves clean. "You don't have to fight him. Just remember it's still your house." Then she left, leaving the door half open. The rest of the day blurred. I swept the porch-trimmed shrubs, replayed her words. From over the fence came cheerful comments. "Eric's such a good son looking after his dad." "You're lucky, George. Not everyone gets that kind of care." I nodded because correcting them would take too much breath. They wouldn't understand that care can turn to control when it ignores your will. By noon, the mail arrived, bills, flyers, and one envelope addressed to the Miller family. The phrase caught me off guard. When had I stopped being just George? About a week later, a white envelope sat in the mailbox addressed to Eric Miller, my name faintly printed below his like an afterthought. It came from the bank. Maybe a routine notice, I told myself, though something in me disagreed. The flap tore easily. Inside was a form, crisp official joint ownership transfer request. Read it again. The words didn't change. My son's name beside mine, requesting recognition as co-owner of the property. A cold weight settled in my chest. So it wasn't about moving in or helping around the house. He'd planned this all along, the sketches, the talk of organization, the insistence on handling bills. Each piece now fit neatly together. I sat at the table, the letter open, the hum of the fridge cutting through the quiet. My pulse sounded too loud. One part of me wanted to laugh at how inevitable it seemed. Another wanted to storm into his office. Neither one. The papers went back into the envelope, then into the top drawer. My hand stayed on the handle longer than it needed to. That evening, Linda appeared with a basket of tomatoes. She caught my expression before I could mask it. What happened, I handed her the envelope. "This came today." Her eyes moved over the page, jaw tightening. "He's trying to add himself to your deed," I nodded. "And you didn't sign anything?" "No." "Good," she said, setting it down. "What are you going to do?" The question lingered. "I don't know," I said finally. "Maybe wait and see how far he intends to go." "You always give people the benefit of the doubt, George," she murmured. "That's kind, but it's how they step over you." She touched my arm and left her footsteps fading down the path. The envelope stayed on the table, catching my eye no matter where I stood. The house felt smaller that night, as if it were listening. I made soup, couldn't taste it. Washed, the bowl drifted into the living room. The floorboards groaned beneath me, the same ones my wife and I had laid by hand. We'd worked through weekends, saving every nail. She used to say, "This house will outlive both of us." Leaning back, I stared at the beams above wood I'd measured and cut myself. The thought of someone else claiming it didn't spark anger, only something heavier, quieter. Every conversation replayed the dinner, his words about protecting finances, taking responsibility, modernizing. What once sounded helpful now aligned into a pattern I'd refused to see. By the weekend, Eric came back with Melissa, a real estate agent, and a tube of blueprints. From the porch, their voices carried down the quiet street. Linda trimmed her roses next door, and two neighbors pretended not to watch. Dad Eric called, reaching the steps we brought the plans. "It's time to move forward." He spread the papers across my table like he was pitching a deal. The agent smiled politely and handed over a clipboard. "Once the joint ownership form is signed, we can start right away," she said, avoiding eye contact. "What form?" I asked. Eric gave a thin laugh. "The one we discussed, so renovations can move legally. I don't remember agreeing to that." He sighed, annoyed. "Come on, Dad. Don't make this harder. The contractor's ready as soon as your name sits next to mine." The room tightened. Melissa flipped through the drawings. The agent checked her watch. Linda appeared in the doorway, holding a plate of muffins like a truce. "This house was built by my hands," I said evenly. "It belongs to me and to the woman who's gone. No one else." The words stopped everything. Then Eric laughed again, sharp. "You're being unreasonable. You should be grateful we're helping. You can't keep this place forever." "Maybe not," I replied. "But it's not yours to keep either." His jaw flexed. "You're stuck in the past. Mom wouldn't have wanted you alone hoarding old memories. We're thinking of your future." Linda shifted. The neighbors murmured behind their fence. The agent began gathering her folders. Eric pushed the papers toward me. "Just sign and we can start fixing this properly. I didn't move. That's enough for today." "Fine," he snapped. "But you're making this harder than it has to be." Melissa tugged his sleeve. They left without looking back. The agent thanked me softly and hurried after them. Linda lingered by the door until the car disappeared down the road. "You all right?" she asked. "I'm fine," I said, though. The words felt hollow. "They'll cool off." She studied me, then returned to her yard. The house sank into a stillness that felt more like aftermath than calm. I sat again, tracing the scattered drawings. One page remained. Smoothing it flat, my eyes caught a red mark over the corner where my wife's sewing nook once stood, now labeled storage room. My throat closed. I folded the paper until the ink vanished, slipped it into my pocket. It fit too easily there. From next door, Linda's radio played an old country song my wife used to hum while cooking. I stayed at the table listening until the music thinned to a whisper. The folded page pressed lightly against my chest each time I breathed, small but sharp as memory. Linda arrived after lunch, a small wooden box held carefully in both hands. She didn't knock, just tapped the doorframe. "Found this in my attic," she said. "Your wife gave it to me before she passed. Told me to return it when the time felt right." I pulled out a chair. The box was familiar brass latch, faint ivy carved along the edges, worn smooth from years of touch. My thumb traced one of the grooves. "Go on," Linda murmured. "Open it." Inside were several envelopes tied with a faded blue ribbon. The paper had browned slightly at the corners. I untied the ribbon and lifted the first letter. Her handwriting, steady looping, looked alive on the page. "If he ever grows lonely, remind him this house isn't just where he lives. It's how he loves." The words wavered before my eyes. She must have written it back when we were still fixing the roof or arguing about tiles. She'd always known I'd need reminding someday. Linda stayed quiet, steam rising from her thermos. I read another letter. "He works himself to the bone because he thinks love must be earned. But the home already loves him back. Every nail, every wall remembers." My hand stilled on the page. Her voice came easily to mind, soft, certain, forgiving. She'd always known how to tell the truth without hurting. "She wrote about you like you were still her beginning?" Linda said. "That sounds like her." We sat quietly. A lawnmower buzzed somewhere, fading in and out. "I think she knew you'd need this," Linda continued. "You've been quiet too long." "Quiet seemed right," I said. She hated conflict. "There's quiet," Linda replied, "and there's disappearing." The words landed gently, but stuck. She was right. I'd been erasing myself piece by piece, nodding through Eric's plans, pretending not to care when people called the place his father's house. Another letter lay at the bottom, smaller, just one line. "Home is a promise, not a place." My chest tightened. I'd treated the house like a shrine, guarding it as if bricks could hold memory. Maybe she'd wanted something different, dignity, choice, the will to stand for what mattered. Linda poured tea and slid a cup toward me. "You can't expect them to respect what you won't defend. I'm not good at fighting." You don't need to fight, she said. Just make it official. Talk to someone who can help you keep what's yours. A lawyer, maybe. The word hung heavy. I hadn't thought about lawyers since signing her will. The letters lay between us, her words pressing closer than her absence ever had. She'd want you to stand up for yourself, Linda said softly. Not out of anger, out of love. I nodded. Maybe you're right. I usually am. She smiled, faintly brushed crumbs from her sleeve. Promise me you'll call. When she left, the house eased into its usual stillness. Afternoon light stretched across the table, touching the letters like a quiet blessing. I reread the first line and felt something shift, a crack where air could finally pass through. Gathering the letters, I placed them back in the box and closed the latch. The sound was small but final. The silence that followed didn't feel like defeat. It felt like room being made for what was next. The phone sat on the counter. My fingers hovered, then moved. The number came easily, Ortiz and Bradley Legal Services, the one I'd passed each week near the grocery store. A click, then a calm voice. Ortiz and Bradley, this is Megan. How can I help you? This is George Miller, I said. I'd like to schedule an appointment. Of course, Mr. Miller. When would you like to come in? My gaze lingered on the wooden box, the words still echoing. Home is a promise. Tomorrow morning, I replied. The line clicked softly. I stayed where I was, the phone warm in my hand, her words still alive in the quiet room. Daniel Ortiz looked younger than I'd imagined, mid-30s, with sleeves rolled neatly to his elbows. His office sat above a bakery, the faint smell of coffee mingling with paper and ink. He greeted me with the calm ease of someone used to steadying other people's nerves. So, Mr. Miller, he said once we sat down, tell me what's going on. I told him everything, no anger, no drama. Just the house, my son, the envelope, the pressure that had been tightening like slow weather. Daniel listened, pen moving only when needed. When I finished, he asked, You haven't signed anything yet? Not a thing. Good. If you still hold full ownership, you can do whatever you want. Sell, transfer, set up a trust, or grant power of attorney. As long as there's no joint authorization, it's entirely yours. I nodded. That's good to know. He studied me briefly. You don't have to decide today. But if your son's moving fast, act before he files anything formal. I just need a few days to think. Take your time, he said, handing me his card. Call when you're ready. The meeting ended cleanly. He didn't treat me like a victim, just a man with choices. Back home, I placed his card beside my wife's letters. The steadiness that followed wasn't peace, just clarity. That afternoon, I started sorting through the house. Winter coats into boxes, linens folded, shelves wiped. Dust rose faintly, carrying the scent of cedar. Every object carried her mark, scarf threads, old photographs, notes slipped into cookbooks. It wasn't grief slowing me, just recognition. Each thing had belonged to a life I thought would last forever. I labeled the boxes. Keep. Donate. Decide later. Linda stopped by with a jar of soup, watching me move around the room. You're cleaning, trying to. You look different, she said, like someone who's already decided something but hasn't said it yet. Maybe I just needed something to do with my hands. She smiled faintly. Whatever it is, I think your wife would approve. She helped me tape a few boxes, then left. I watched her cross the yard, her jacket brushing the grass. Daniel's words came back. You still have full control. Nothing's been taken yet. That last word lingered. Yet. The phone buzzed. A message from Eric Contractors coming tomorrow to take measurements. I read it twice. He hadn't asked, only announced. My jaw tightened. I could have replied, don't come. But instead I deleted it. The screen went dark. The clock ticked from the next room. After a while, I opened my contacts and found Daniel Ortiz. My thumb hovered over the name. I thought of my wife's words. Home is how you love, and Linda's warning, you can't wait for people to respect what you don't defend. Somewhere between those two truths, hesitation slipped away. I pressed the call button. The ring barely lasted before Daniel's calm voice came through. "This is Daniel Ortiz." 2 days later, the phone rang just after breakfast. A woman from the bank spoke politely, detached. "Mr. Miller, we're calling to confirm that your son is finalizing the joint ownership documents. We just need your signature to complete the file." The cup froze halfway to the table. "My signature." "Yes, sir. We received authorization, but your confirmation is missing." Something shifted under me, not panic, just the quiet drop when the floor gives way. "Thank you," I said evenly. "I'll come by to review it in person." After hanging up, I stood still for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator. Then I called Daniel. He picked up on the second ring. "I think he's gone ahead with it," I said. "The bank just called." There was a pause on the line. "Come in," he said. At the office, Daniel spread the papers across his desk. My name sat beside Eric's signatures in place where I'd never signed. "He forged it," Daniel said quietly. "Same handwriting, same initials. But it isn't yours." I stared at the page. "Can he do that? Not legally. But the longer you wait, the messier it gets. If you want to end this, cleanly sell the property before the application is processed." The words hit hard. Sell the house. It sounded both impossible and inevitable. "You don't have to decide now," Daniel added. "But it's time to choose what you're willing to lose." "I'll think about it." My hand stayed folded steady, though my pulse wasn't. Back home, nothing held still. The clock ticked too loudly, wind brushed the shutters, floorboards creaked under each step. I tried reading, then stopped. The words wouldn't stay still. Evening came. The porch light clicked on. Tires crunched over gravel. Eric entered without knocking, face flushed. "Why'd you call the bank? They called me. They said you're questioning the paperwork. Do you realize how that looks? You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm trying to understand why my name's on papers I didn't sign." His jaw flexed. "I did what I had to do. You're dragging your feet, and I'm trying to protect this place before you ruin it. You don't know what you're doing anymore." The words landed sharp. "You think I've lost my mind. I think you're confused, living alone too long, clinging to things that don't make sense. I'm helping you, and you act like I'm stealing from you." His voice rose until it filled the hallway. A tremor in his hands betrayed him. I stood slowly. "Eric, stop." He stepped closer. "You'll regret this. I can't keep fixing your mistakes. You've made yourself busy with things that aren't yours to fix," I said. "You should go home." He froze, then shook his head. Unbelievable. The door slammed. Headlights swept the yard and vanished. Morning came with a decision. I packed a folder deed will title, copy bills ID. Ordinary papers heavy with years of meaning. At Daniel's office, he greeted me with the same calm tone, motioning to the chair. His eyes moved over the folder before meeting mine. "Are you sure you want to sell, Mr. Miller?" "I don't want to," I said. "But if that's the only way to take back my voice, then I have to." Daniel nodded once. No surprise, only understanding. "All right. We'll keep it discreet. No public listing, no gossip. I know a couple looking for something like your place, quiet, private, off the market." He paused, pen poised. "You understand this can't be undone once it's signed?" "I do. I built that house to last, but it's not a monument. It should belong to someone who sees it as a home, not a claim." Daniel studied me. "You don't seem angry." I was. Anger just ties you to what you're trying to leave behind. You sound like a man at peace with his choice. "I'm getting there." He gathered the documents. Give me 2 days. I'll handle the details. You'll only need to sign once the buyers confirm. The sky hung low and gray, the kind of weather that never decided on rain. I walked to my truck lighter than I'd felt in months. For once, a decision wasn't about defending the past. It was about moving forward. By the time I reached home, my phone buzzed non-stop. Dad, please don't do this. You're destroying everything Mom built. You don't know what you're doing. Then finally, you're tearing this family apart. Each message carried a different tone, pleading guilt accusation, but none had what mattered respect. I set the phone face down and made coffee. The scent filled the room, grounding me. Small, familiar motions, pouring, stirring, placing the cup down, kept my thoughts steady. Wind bent the trees outside. I watched them sway, the rhythm calm and certain. Near dusk, Linda knocked on the back door, a paper bag in her hands. "Brought you something," she said, smiling faintly. Another peace offering, maybe just a distraction. I poured her coffee. She glanced at the half-packed boxes. "How's it going with the lawyer?" "He found a buyer, a private couple." She nodded, tearing a piece of pastry. "Do what you need to, George. Just make sure you can sleep afterward." "That's the plan." She squeezed my hand briefly. "Then you'll be fine." When she left, I walked through the rooms. The living room, the narrow hall, the bedroom still untouched since she died. Every surface carried traces of time, softened by use. The ache was gone, replaced by quiet gratitude. Night settled. I washed the cups, turned off the light. The phone glowed faintly, another unread message from Eric waiting. I didn't open it. The stillness in the house felt clean, not lonely. Then the screen lit again. "The buyer is ready. Daniel's message." I read it twice, then exhaled slowly. A small smile found me. I think I murmured, "I might sleep tonight." I set the phone down, turned off the lamp, and let the dark fall into place. Monday arrived gray and heavy. I had just finished breakfast when Eric's car rolled up the drive. He didn't text, didn't knock, just walked in, shoulders tight, eyes tired but defiant. "Dad," he began, voice strained, "please don't do anything stupid. I just want to make sure the property's safe." Leaning against the counter, I met his gaze. Safe from what? From bad decisions. From people taking advantage of you. He gestured around the kitchen, as if the walls themselves were proof of my incompetence. "You're under a lot of pressure, and I get that. But selling the house—" "That's not the answer." "What exactly are you protecting, Eric?" I asked. "This house or your pride?" He laughed once, short and cold. "You're twisting this. I'm trying to save you from being conned. Your old dad. You don't always see things clearly anymore." I stared at him for a long moment, and something in me settled. If I get fooled, that's on me. But you're deceiving me while I'm still perfectly aware of what you're doing. He flinched, but recovered quickly. "You're being paranoid." "No," I said softly. "I'm finally paying attention." For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The clock ticked too loudly. Eric shifted fingers, tapping the table, searching for something to hold on to. "I'm your son," he said at last, voice rough. "I'm doing what's best for everyone. I don't remember asking you to decide that for me." His jaw tightened. He looked away, then back. The silence between us turned sharp. "Fine," he muttered. "You want to ruin everything? Go ahead. But don't expect me to clean it up." I never did. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and left. The door shut hard, followed by the sound of gravel under his tires. I stayed by the table, hands resting on the chair. My pulse was steady, not from calm, but certainty. There was nothing left to explain. The distance between us had stopped being temporary. The house held the echo of our voices. I walked to the desk and opened the drawer. The sale contract lay waiting neat, complete Daniel's note clipped to the top. I spread the pages on the table, each one heavier than its paper weight. Transfer of ownership. Seller's declaration. The words looked plain, but final. I traced a line with my finger until they blurred. For a moment, I saw my wife painting the porch, her laughter mixing with the sound of nails hitting wood. Those memories didn't hold me back. They stood beside me, quiet and approving. Dust hung faintly in the room, the smell of old varnish, familiar and tired. I stacked the papers, placed my hand over them, and felt the weight settle into something like peace. No anger left, no sorrow, just done. The clock in the hall marked the seconds, not loss, but motion. A dog barked once a mower droned somewhere down the street. Life went on unbothered. I slid the contract back into its envelope, tucked it under my arm, and headed for the door. The choice had been forming for months, built from every silence I'd mistaken for patience. Now it was clear action, not argument. At Daniel's office, the pavement still shimmered from overnight drizzle. Papers waited neatly clipped. "The buyers are a young couple from Seattle," he said. "They want a quiet place to start over work from home. No kids yet." "That sounds right," I answered. He passed the folder across the desk. "Once you sign, it's official. The notary's ready for tomorrow." My name sat beside the words, "Seller of Record." I'd seen it 1,000 times before taxes permits bills, but this one felt different. Final. The pen moved easily. No hesitation. Daniel checked each page, slid them back into a file. "That's it," he said. "You've done the hard part." I thanked him and reached the truck. My shoulders were soaked, but the weight that had lived there for years felt gone. By noon, the storm still lingered. I sorted drawers, old receipts, cracked pens, useless screws, each thing leaving my hands without effort. Near 4, the phone rang. Eric's name lit the screen. I let it buzz twice, then picked up. "What are you doing?" His voice trembled with fury. The bank called. "Tell me this isn't true." "It is," I said. "You're insane. You can't just sell the house, it's our family home." "No, Eric," I replied, steady. "It's mine, always was. You're being manipulated. That lawyer's taking advantage. Daniel works for me." I cut in. He did exactly what I asked. A pause. Breathing turned shallow on the other end. "You can't just erase everything." "I'm not erasing it," I said. "I'm ending it on my terms. Dad, please, I can. And I already did." The call ended. The next morning, a neighbor called around 9. "George, have you seen what Eric posted?" she asked, uneasy. I hadn't. "It's about you," she added. Online, his post spread fast paragraphs, casting me as a confused old man taken advantage of by outsiders. No names, but everyone knew. Comments multiplied like weeds fed by people who preferred gossip to truth. The phone rang non-stop. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years asked if I was doing all right. Old friends circled the subject, pretending concern. One man even said, "You should forgive him, George. He's just worried about you." Worried. The word echoed until it lost meaning. Linda came in that afternoon, a folded newspaper under her arm. "You've made the news," she said. I let out a quiet breath. Didn't think I was that interesting. She spread it open. The headline read, "Town Landmark Changes Hands." Below it, a photo of the house from the street, my house. The article was short-ending with a line about the passing of an era. "They called it a symbol," Linda murmured. "I don't mind," I said. "Let them talk. I'm just clearing space for someone else to live." She studied me. "You're taking this better than most would. Maybe because I stopped caring how people see me. They'll believe what they want." She hesitated. "Eric's hurting." "I know," I said. "That's his to carry, not mine." She nodded, left the paper, and went home. The quiet that followed felt clean, like the house had exhaled. A few more messages blinked on the phone, some kind, others not. You didn't have to humiliate your own son. People will remember this, George. I deleted them all. Memory was never the issue. People just preferred stories that hurt less. As evening settled, the sky dulled to gray steel. I went upstairs, opened the closet, and began sorting what was left. The work steadied me. A box sat high on the shelf, photographs, birthdays, fishing trips, Christmas mornings. My wife's handwriting curled on the backs, Eric's first school day. George fixing the roof. Our last summer by the lake. I went through them slowly. The edges had curled, colors softened. They no longer hurt, just reminded. Like echoes fading kindly. At the bottom was a small music box. It still worked. The tune wavered, fragile but sweet. I let it play while I packed. There was no bitterness left, only the quiet ache that comes when something finally closes right. Linda arrived at sunrise, her car humming softly up the drive. The house stood nearly bare, boxes gone, shelves cleared, floors swept. Only the wooden table and my wife's photograph remained. She stepped in holding 2 travel mugs of coffee. "You ready?" she asked. As I'll ever be. The air felt still, not lonely, just finished. I walked through each room, touching door frames, window sills, the worn edges where years had smoothed the paint. Every corner carried an echo, but none asked me to stay. At the front door, the key felt heavy in my hand. "This house used to be proof of love," I said quietly. "Now it's proof of boundaries." Linda nodded. "Then it's done its job." I locked the door and handed her the key. On the porch, the morning mist hung low over the yard. The for sale sign now bore a red sticker, "Sold." We got in her car. The highway stretched ahead, wet and shining. Neither of us spoke. The world looked new, almost unfamiliar, as if I'd finally stepped into a dream I'd been avoiding. After a while, she asked, "You sure you're all right, more than I expected?" The tires whispered over damp pavement. My hands rested loosely on my knees. "I used to think forgiveness was the highest form of love," I said. She waited. "I still believe in forgiveness," I went on, "but I've learned that protecting yourself from being trampled on, that's love too, just turned inward." Linda smiled faintly. "That sounds like something your wife would have said." "Maybe she did," I said. I just wasn't listening then. The road curved west, the town fading behind us. The further we drove, the calmer. I felt like each mile loosened another knot. Familiar places slipped away, the diner where we had Sunday breakfasts, the hardware store that still carried my name on an old ledger, the church steeple behind the trees. Each landmark fell back without resistance. "You're really leaving it all behind?" Linda said softly. "Most of it left me first," I answered. "I'm just catching up." She chuckled. "You always made peace sound like arithmetic. Maybe peace is just subtraction done right." Her laugh filled the car light, but kind. We drove in easy quiet. Mist brushed across the windshield. My reflection hovered there, lined, older but steady. I didn't see loss anymore, just someone who'd reclaimed his place in his own story. At the end of the main road stood the town sign, Maple Street, population 2308. In the mirror, the for sale, sold placard blurred under drizzle, the old house shrinking until the trees took it. No sorrow came, only stillness spreading through my chest, the kind that follows when you stop negotiating with pain. Linda turned up the heater, warm air filling the car. "You'll be okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "I think I'll actually sleep tonight." She nodded and kept her eyes forward. The town fell away behind us, the horizon opening wide. Daniel called early. "Eric's here," he said evenly. "He's demanding a reversal. I told him to wait until you arrived." Are you comfortable with that? Yes, I said. 10 minutes. When I entered, Eric stood near the window, arms crossed, jaw tight, tired more than angry, though the old stubbornness still burned behind his eyes. Daniel sat at his desk, papers arranged with deliberate order. Dad Eric began, voice flat. I can fix this. If you tell them you were misled, say you didn't understand what you were signing, we can contest the sale. Daniel spoke before I could. Mr. Miller wasn't misled. He understood every detail. The sale was voluntary and recorded with the county clerk. Eric turned sharply. You took advantage of him. He's not. Daniel lifted a hand. Your father was lucid and deliberate. I have transcripts if you'd like proof. Eric faltered. His certainty cracked. It's done, I said quietly. He shook his head. No. You're letting go of everything we built. What we built, I asked. You mean the house your mother and I paid for with every hour we had? He looked down. I'm not asking for an apology, I said. But understand this. Parents aren't property. We're not something to inherit or manage. We're people imperfect, aging, but never yours to control. His throat moved once before he spoke. I was trying to protect you. You don't see how easily people take advantage of someone your age. You didn't want to protect me, I said. You wanted control. The words landed. He gripped the edge of the desk, searching for an argument that wouldn't come. You think this is easy for me? No, I said. But it's right. The fight drained from him. He looked smaller, younger, the boy who once stood in doorways after being scolded, too proud to cry. I can't believe you'd just walk away from everything, he muttered. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm moving forward. The door clicked behind him. The sound lingered. Daniel exhaled softly. You handled that better than most. You didn't raise him, I said. He smiled faintly, handed me one last form. Final acknowledgement for the record. Once you sign here, it's officially closed. The paper was cool beneath my hand. Each signature I'd written in that office had carried something different. Fear, resolve, clarity. This one carried only completion. Daniel stood and offered his hand. Congratulations, he said simply. It's over. I nodded, shook his hand, and left. Months later, I rented a small wooden house beyond town with a yard that met a stand of pines. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I planted 3 beds marigolds lavender and something bright for the front, and fixed the gate so it opened cleanly. The rhythm of the work steadied me. Linda visited, sometimes bringing bread or pie. We shared tea and spoke of ordinary things, the neighbors, the weather, the garden. When words ran out, we sat quietly. Some silences didn't need filling. I built a small shelf for what I kept her recipe cards, the mug she used, one photograph, with her uneven smile. It stood between 2 books of poetry, enough of a reminder without asking for reverence. One evening, waiting for the kettle, I touched the frame and said I kept my promise. The words felt settled, like something that no longer needed an answer. Letters came full of advice about forgiveness and family. I replied briefly and folded them away. The explanations belonged to others now. My own story didn't require defense. Occasionally, I heard about Eric, new job, new apartment. I didn't ask for more. The distance itself was peace enough. Evenings filled easily. I read, cooked, mended things that needed mending. When doubt rose, work put it back in place. Routine held me steady. One afternoon, Linda and I sat on the porch. She studied me and said, "You look like you're breathing easier." I suppose I am. You did what you had to do. The wind moved through the yard, carrying the faint sound of the chime I'd hung from the porch beam. Its tune wavered, thin but clear. I stood listening, the sound small and honest. No triumph, no ache, just quiet, complete.